there enough to see you guys.
Good morning. Today is August 13th, 2026. The time is now 9:07 a.m. Eastern Time. This is the duly called meeting of the Texas Low-Level Radioactive Waste Compact Commission. We are here in Woodstock, Vermont today for our annual trip to Vermont. So for those of you back in Texas watching, I know it's an hour early and we appreciate you getting up a little bit early to join us. We have a long agenda today, so we thought starting at 9 a.m. was a good idea for people trying to get out of town. Before we start, I want to say, as we always do, this trip is the highlight of our year. This hotel and the Woodstock community have been so nice to host us. It is a wonderful place, wonderful to get out of the heat, and it has been a great trip, as it always is. So for all of you from Vermont, especially our Vermont commissioners and Deborah, we appreciate all the hospitality you've shown us and the help you've provided us in getting us here. And we appreciate it. With that, we will proceed with today's meeting. As a reminder, if you are online today, if you would use the raise your hand function, which is in the bottom tray of your Zoom platform, if you need to speak, we will recognize you as soon as possible. Today's meeting will be recorded as well, and you can view it at a future date on our YouTube channel or through our website. So as we get our meeting going, I want to make sure we have a forum, and we have Commissioner Morris, Commissioner Sullivan, myself, Commissioner Bradford, and Vice Chairman Sullivan. Online, we have Commissioner Mundy. We are also joined today, and we appreciate very much, Mr. David Steyer, who is from the Attorney General's office. We appreciate his participation today, and sure we'll be needing his advice at some point today, so we appreciate him attending. Do we have any other elected officials or press online today?
She got down strong.
Strong is with us, probably in body only, not in mind, but we appreciate his attendance. And we appreciate everyone else that's joining us online. We are sad that you couldn't go to St. Vermont because you're missing out. It is beautiful. We're looking out for this beautiful greenery, the hotel where we are, and beautiful creek, and it sure doesn't look like a hearing room at the Texas Capitol. I promise you that. So with that, we have a forum, and we can proceed with our business here through items 1 through 3. And the fourth item on our agenda is our public comment. Again, if you would like to make a comment of a general nature, this is the opportunity to do that. You will also get the opportunity to comment on any specific agenda item that we have. So please know that if you're waiting to speak to a specific item, you can wait as well. But is there anyone who would like to make a comment of a general nature? Oh, I'm sorry. Also, we are joined today by Tony Lushinsky, who is the state of Vermont nuclear engineer. We appreciate his attendance online. Tony is a valuable resource and always has wonderful insights from the Vermont perspective. So we appreciate his attendance. Anybody else in the interviews? So again, back to the public comment period. If anyone would like to make a comment of a general nature, please use the raise your hand function, or if you're here, you can raise your hand, the old school way. Again, during this period, I will once again reiterate, this trip is very important to us. We appreciate the opportunity to come to Vermont. We appreciate the hospitality we get. And as we've said a million times, and we'll say again, I'm sure before the meeting's over, Vermont's very much our equal partner in this, and therefore that's really important that we absolutely value the input from any and all Vermonters, especially those in the government. And they have always been very gracious in hosting us, so we appreciate that. And we again appreciate Commissioner Sullivan, Commissioner Bradford, and Deborah for helping us host this meeting. Not seeing any hands, we can move on to item number 5, which is the report from WCS and Mr. Dave Carlson, who's with us today. So I'll ask him to come on.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Dave Carlson, President of Voice Control Specialists, and I'll give you my report. So let me start with WCS continues to operate the safest, most robust, low-level radioactive waste disposal facility in the U.S. and perhaps in the world. And next year, I'm proud to announce we'll be coming up on 30 years of operation at that facility, 30 years of environmental and personnel safety at that site. So our record is something to be proud of, and we're very proud of it. To go through the numbers as they sit today, current fiscal year to date, our disposals have been 1,386 cubic feet in compact, 405 curies. Out of compact, 30,328 cubic feet and 57,683 curies. Our totals since inception of the facility are 323,081 cubic feet. That's about 3.6% of what's licensed at the facility. And 624,364 curies. Now, our constructed capacity as of today, including phase 1 and phase 2A, is 875,000 cubic feet. So what we have remaining is 551,919 cubic feet. So about 63% of what's been constructed so far is still available for waste to be placed. In terms of our quarterly payments, we pay surcharges on top of our taxes to the state of Texas and to the county of Andrews. And our surcharges in the last quarter to Texas were $1,617,791, and to Andrews County, $296,438. So our total since inception of paying these surcharges, which is since 2012, our totals are to Texas, $98,316,000, and to Andrews County, $21,970,000. So a total of over $120 million in surcharges on top of our taxes have been paid to Texas and to Andrews County. And that concludes my report. Do you have any questions?
I was gonna ask you, how did the disposal numbers year to date compare over the past couple of years? Are they in line, or is there an uptick or a downtick or anything like that?
They're relatively in line. It may be a slight downtick because obviously Vermont Yankee is nearly complete at this point, and so we're not receiving materials from Vermont Yankee into the compact waste facility. And similarly, Crystal River is coming, towards the end of that project, and so the things that go into a 10 CFR 61 facility at this point are very limited coming out of those two locations.
Any new decommissioning starting soon?
Decommissioning, I don't see any nuclear power plants decommissioning anytime soon. The USS Enterprise will start fairly soon, but that'll go into the federal waste facility. So that really doesn't impact the compact waste facility.
I always try to track the usage, the percentage of usage of what we granted. And that seems to be pretty consistent. It can end up being about a quarter of the total amount. And it is for everyone, not, I know individually it's different, but at the end of the day, you add them all up. Are the generators using about a quarter of what we authorized them?
Yeah, it's pretty close. Just looking at it right now, approved volume to date is 122,000 cubic feet, and we've used about 30,000 cubic feet. So yeah, a quarter is a real.
Is that true?
Good number.
Too? That the quarter.
It's a little bit less than that on curies. So we've approved 310,000 curies and disposed almost 58,000 curies. So it's less than a quarter in that case.
Any other questions, Mr. Carl?
Mr. Carl, yes. Hi, Dave. How are you? Could you tell us about WCS's acquisition of Aileron? What y'all's relationship is now?
Yeah, they're a wholly owned subsidiary of WCS at this point, and expand our presence into the eastern part of the United States. Obviously, in West Texas, we're a bit farther from the East Coast, and that puts a footprint closer to the East Coast.
But WCS controls. Is it just the Pennsylvania facility that was acquired?
Yeah, the only facility that Aileron has is the facility in Wampum, Pennsylvania.
Okay. But it is controlled by you. WCS controls that Aileron business now.
We do, but it's regulated obviously by the state of Pennsylvania. So, and they're a strong regulator similar to TCEQ.
Okay. Thank you.
And what does Aileron do that WCS doesn't?
Yeah, some really important things that they do for the nuclear industry is, one example is after an outage, the equipment that's gone into containment to conduct work comes out of there. And because everything's going fast during a nuclear power plant outage, perhaps 30 days or even faster sometimes is the pace they do that at. They don't have time to survey every individual item out of containment. So they can take a sealant container of materials, for example, instrumentation and tools and so on, and they can survey that entire container out, uh, indicate to the owner of that equipment that it's clean to be reused and that they don't have to treat it as contaminated material and prepare it for the next outage. So that's one of the things they do. Another thing they do is if you think about nuclear power plants, the control rooms have backup batteries. Major banks of backup batteries so that even if somehow all the power and all the backup power and all the backups to the backup power went out, they would still have the ability to read their instrumentation and perform certain functions and so on. Those batteries don't last forever, so they have to be replaced. So something, again, it comes out of an area where nuclear power plants aren't comfortable directly releasing that into the marketplace. So at Aileron, we would receive those kinds of things, survey them to make sure they're clean, and then send them to normal battery recycling once we're convinced that they're clean. In a number of activities like that, they store contaminated items on their site. So I know they work with some of the transportation cask suppliers to store those transportation casks on their site. They also provide a workplace for folks to work on contaminated equipment if they don't have their own radioactive materials facility. So, for example, somebody that owns one of those casks could come to the Aileron location, do their work under control of Aileron radiation technicians, and do whatever they need to do without having to develop their own radioactive materials license, their own radioactive facility.
In an industry parlance, which we might need to define, is Alron considered a processor or a broker or both?
They do a lot of things. I mean, my site in Andrews, I suppose, is a processor and a disposer and a treater. Uh, I don't think those definitions are perfectly clear, but they do things like I've described. They do things like consolidate waste and ship it onward. They do transload. So in many cases, it's cost effective to ship waste by rail. And so we use, many transload locations, including Aileron, where we would take waste from a truck onto rail. So Aileron is one of many in that situation. So they do a lot of different things.
As far as a physical footprint, what is their storage capacity? When you said that they can store certain things there, do they have a limit like you do in the WCS?
They do. They have a rad materials license that specifies, all their authority and all the limits of what they can do and so on.
And is it comparable to the WCS facility, or is it larger or smaller? Or
no, it's a much smaller facility. I think a couple of the commissioners have actually been there. So it's compared to WCS, it's not large. They have several buildings on the site for storage of things, for conducting their activities and so on.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Carlson? Commissioner Money, were you through?
Yes, that's all I had.
Are you seeing a big boom in the future? I mean, this is a loose question, but with SMR, they're interested, all this business is interested, building new nukes and data centers and yada, yada, yada. Like, are you figuring that this is going to really kind of take off?
I absolutely do. I think a lot of it may be a decade away, but certainly there's a lot of energy in that direction today. A lot of obstacles that had been out there are being broken down. There's 5 states right now that have volunteered to dispose of things like radiation class C waste, dispose or at least store spent nuclear fuel. So those 5 states have been selected by Texas is not one of them, but 5 states have been selected by the federal government to do those things. including Utah, Tennessee, Oklahoma. Uh, So, I think we will see a lot going on in my industry, but I'm very excited about what's happening with SMRs and potentially with large reactors like AP1000s. Certainly, we need the power, and nuclear is a good, clean way to provide it. I see the fusion moving forward in many ways. Obviously, they'll need extensive waste management capabilities to support fusion as well. As you look at all the radioactive wastes that come out of a fusion facility.
Good question, Dave, I'm sure you know the answer. Many of these startups that have been working on SMRs and those kinds of things have constructed or are constructing test reactors. I think several of them on the Idaho National Snakes and things. Would the waste that is generated at those test reactors be considered commercial, or is that going to be waste?
I don't fully know that, and it probably depends on where they're located and what kind of deal they cut with the government. In general, though, if you take a look at a test reactor and it's gone critical, critical is a very low threshold, so there's very few, neutrons, very little irradiation, so very little generation of irradiated material or radioactive waste. So a test reactor doesn't necessarily generate a substantial quantity of radioactive waste. It'd be lightly contaminated, I suppose, or lightly irradiated and slightly nuclear. And yes, that'll have to go to radioactive waste disposal, but we're not talking about large quantities.
Not sense.
Right, a power reactor would be very different because it operates for many years. A lot of neutrons, radiates the metal, and obviously you have to do. You have to use my kind of facility to deal with that kind of thing.
Thanks.
Are there any plans, the right word? Is there any current timelines for the construction of full-size reactors in our country, other holding SMR issues in mind? Do we know of anybody who's made concrete steps for building a new full-size reactor?
There's a lot of discussion about it. If we look in Texas, for example, the Fermi activity that's happening in the Panhandle has talked about building full-size reactors in the Panhandle near the Pantex plant. Certainly, there's a lot of discussion about building 10 AP1000s and using some Japanese financing to do that. But has anybody broken ground on those yet? No, I don't believe so.
License. Taking that step in any way?
So the AP1000 design is already licensed. So there's, a lot that's been done there. Going beyond that, I can't provide any more details that I know of.
Davis plants two reactors, I believe, partially constructed, but never finished in the southeast. Is it
In Georgia.
Yeah, it's VC Summer in South Carolina. So in Georgia, Vogtle got finished, and VC Summer has two plants that were being built that apparently were fairly well preserved when they stopped, and are potentially. I know there's a study going on right now to determine if there's value in starting those up, and certainly, personally, I would hope they do.
Dave, the specifics of our chemistry and our department. I'm assuming, but just in terms of mine, the sense that the ebbs and flows over the last half century or so. But it's usually when you're not foreseeing decommissioning starting up. They're just around. And you touched on the pipeline, and it keeps running. Our old energies and shut down the last 10 years, 7 years. But also as everybody people foreseeing same solutions and going on often opposites about the that always regards to press somewhere between glass and so like we wanted a bad lunch. I'd say it's just likely to see the office.
You have a good perspective on it, Commissioner. Um, I look at the life, of the licensed life of reactors being pushed out to 80 years in many cases, which, I assume that almost all of them will be pushed out, but we're looking at some older reactors. Yeah.
I don't know, does that result in fewer or less their decommissioning, the watch it done? They don't operate, obviously, get back years.
Yeah, so if they go on operating, the operational waste stays relatively the same, but a lot of these plants go through uprates. And so in uprates, they'd be changing out heat exchangers and turbines and things like that. And that certainly generates some, fairly low activity waste, but certainly generates some waste as they go through those processes.
Yeah, I even sit down there, the place, you know, you come from.
Right, things can age. We've seen steam generators age and get replaced, and so that's going to happen. Tubes fail over time, and eventually you can't re-sleeve them anymore.
Radiated hardware, and eventually they have to replace that stuff.
Right, even PWRs occasionally have, source range monitors and those kind of things that need to be replaced.
Any other questions, Mr. Cross? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, we can move on to item 6 on our agenda, which is our rules committee report. I think we have good news from our rules committee, so I'll turn it over to Chair of our rules committee, Commissioner Moore.
Thank you. The changes we requested to our rules management, the rule that Stephen wanted to change regarding hard copies, that all vacancy of executed folks. And as well as some change to be made to the small one general. So so to the first.
And we got no comments.
Right, receiving from comments, and the publication is in Texas Register, so they are effective September 1st. So everybody that keeps sending hard copies to WCS to you is us, one you send out copies.
I'm sorry, and they should just go into that.
So for everyone online who regularly submit applications to us after September 1, you do not have submit hard copies to the ECQ if you've done with electronically, it doesn't make everyone's life a little bit easier.
And just an FYI, everybody, when you submit, the way I have to set up now, for everybody's benefit, when you submit your application, we send the conferences, you put it in the inbox, so they get it as soon as I. So it's already done.
Yeah, one other comment, small quantity generator. Mr. Ray's putting in the application or petitions. There's a checkbox for a small quantity generator. He's included a definition of it. So that when people can look to see indeed they thought.
And that's hopefully to help people, I think, in the past is, for a latent check. And hopefully this pop-up box for the definition will help people avoid inadvertent checking. So, thank you very much. That is item 6. From now on to item 7, the contingency and capacity committee report. And I'm assuming there's nothing to report, but I'll make sure with Commissioner Money.
Nothing new.
Thank you very much. With that, we're through item 7, and we're on to item 8, which is the consideration and possible actions on the import application. We have had a request to pull out specifically Aileron's application and treat it separately, but I believe the remainder of them we are going to treat as a group, just based on sheer volume that we have. I will turn it over to the head of our technical committee, Vice Chairman, Mr. Sullivan, and let him give us a description of all of the applications other than Aileron.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, members of the public. The technical committee has received and reviewed import application from Palisades Energy. Which received May 2026, so 1-0527-00. In this case, Palisades is a generator requesting authorization to dispose of waste in accordance with the Act. They requested authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable bead resin and powdered resin sludge filters, dry active wastes, high activity material, large components, contaminated hardware and contaminated hardware and components, and then sealed sources and containers. Those waste streams were approved for disposal, WCS site via letter of correspondence from TCEQ dated July 30, 2026. They requested, volume of 1,500 cubic feet, total radioactivity 400 curies. We received no comments on this, import request. That material will originate from the state of Michigan, which is an unaffiliated state. And they requested an agreement for next fiscal year, so the proposed agreement will have termination date of August 31, 2027. That committee recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So the way we'll do this as a group is we'll obviously give people the opportunity to ask questions. At this point in every one of these, the actual motion to approve them will all be done together. So this will be the only opportunity to give ask questions. There will not be the traditional motion second to vote on the individual application. So with that, are there any questions of the technical? Any online? Hearing none, we move on to 8D, XO.
The technical committee has received and reviewed the import application from Excel Energy Prairie Island Nuclear Plant, which was received May 21st, 2026. Number 1-0528-00. Prairie Island is the generator. Requested authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C stable and unstable bead resin particle filters and dry active waste. Those waste streams were approved for disposal at the site. The letter corresponds from TCEQ dated July 30, 2026. They requested 900 cubic feet and 500 curies of radioactivity. We received no comments on this import application. In this case, Prairie Island is located in the state of Minnesota, which is in the Midwest Compact, and it's not required export authorization. And the applicant did happen to check a small quantity generator box, but in this case, they're a power facility, so they are excluded from that definition. They have requested an agreement for next fiscal year, so we'll have a termination date of August 31, 2027. Tech committee recommends approval, and I think have an answer to questions.
I should have said this at the outset of this item. For anyone who's maybe new online, generally speaking, we do not have this volume of applications. The reason we do is because our disposal year also runs the same as the Texas fiscal year, which is September 1st, August 31st. So this is the last meeting before our next disposal year, and that's the reason we see a large volume of applications, which has always been the way it's occurred. So we anticipated that metric we're figuring out. So with that, are there any questions? Technical committee on item 8B, the import application of XL Energy Prairie Island. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 8C.
Next application is from Excel Energy Monticello Nuclear Generating Plant, which received May 21, 2026. It's number 1-0529-00. Monticello is a generator. In this case, they're requesting authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable powdered and deep ion exchange resins, filters, PAW trash, hydrogen, oxygen, recombiner catalyst. Those waste streams were approved via letter of correspondence from TCEQ dated July 36. They are requesting a volume of 1,000 cubic feet with a total radioactivity of 200 curies. We did receive a letter from from WCS dated July 5, 2026, recommending approval of this import application. This will originate from the state of Minnesota, which again is in the Midwest Compact and does not require export authorization. And they have requested an agreement for next fiscal year, so the agreement will have a termination date of August 31, 2027. Tech committee recommends approval. And have any questions.
Any questions on item 8C, the import application of Xcel Energy Monticello? Hearing none, we can move on to item 8D, which is the import application, the first import application of Holtec Decommissioning International.
So we received an import application from Holtec Decommissioning International LLC, which received June 8, 2026. It's number 1-0530-00. Holtec is a generator requesting authorization to dispose of waste. They are requesting authorization of Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable radiated hardware, reactor vessel components, and weddings. Those waste streams were approved for disposal at the site via letter of correspondence with TCDP dated July 26. They are requesting a volume of 9,456 cubic feet and 229 curies. We did receive a letter from WCS recommending approval dated August 5, 2026. And this waste will originate from the states of Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York, which are in the Atlantic Compact, as well as 2 unaffiliated states. The Atlantic Compact does not require export authorization. They requested an agreement for next fiscal year, so the termination date will be August 31, 2027. Committee recommends approval.
This is a good opportunity to remind everyone, this does contain the radiated hardware, but the volume, excuse me, the curie volume that they're requesting does not go above our set standard for the continuous curing program. So while it does say radiated hardware, it is not subject to the continuous curing program, but that's 15,000 curies. Any other questions about item 8B, the first import application? Here now we can move on to item 8E, the second import application for technique.
Yes, this import application from Holtec was received June 8, 2026. It's number 1-053100. Again, they are a generator. In this case, they're requesting authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable, feed resin and powdered resin and sludge filters, and dry active waste, high activity large components, contaminant hardware and components, and sealed sources and containers. Those waste streams were approved for disposal by TCDP with a letter dated July 30, 2026. Holtec is requesting a volume of 52,619 cubic feet and 245 curies. And this, we did receive a letter from WCS recommending approval of this import application. And this waste will originate from the states of Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York, 2 unaffiliated states, and the Atlantic Compact does not require export authorization. And again, they requested an agreement for next fiscal year, so we have a termination date of August 31, 2027. To the recommends approval, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the technical committee on item 8E, the second import application of Holtec? I guess I just have one clarification. I'm assuming Holtec split these into 2 because the first contained radiated hardware.
That's correct. Technically, they didn't have to do that. They could have included it all in one if they had wanted to, but I think the generators have decided they have radiated hardware. They're just separating that out. I think virtually every time you see that, they should be separating that.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we move on to item 8F, the import application of Palisades.
So we received an import application from Palisades Energy LLC, received May 20, 2026. It's number 1-0532. Palisades is a generator requesting authorization to dispose of waste, and they requested authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable radiated hardware, reactor vessel components, metal cuttings, reactor primary cooling system components. And those waste streams were approved for disposal via letter of correspondence from the TCDP dated July 30, 2026. They have requested volume of 2,000 cubic feet and a total radioactivity of 60 curies. WCS sent a letter recommending offers approval of this application. That waste will originate from the state of Michigan, which is unaffiliated. And they requested an agreement for next fiscal year, so that would have a termination date of August 31, 2027. And the technically recommends approval.
Any questions for the technical committee on item 8?
Yeah, it's 1 of 3 that has that potential, but there is a big iron after 3. I don't. I don't worry. So I don't know. Yeah.
Any other questions for the technical committee? Hearing none, I think we can move on to item 8G, the import application of VWXT ordinance from Tennessee.
So we received an application from EWXT Ordinance Tennessee Incorporated. It was received June 9, 2026. It's number 1-0533-00. VWXT is a generator. They're requesting authorization for Class A unstable depleted uranium oxide metal low-level radioactive waste. And those waste streams were approved for disposal at the site. The letter corresponds to TCU dated July 30, 2026. They're requesting authorization for 1,500 cubic feet and 115 curies. WCS then sent a letter recommending approval of this import application. That waste will originate from the state of Tennessee, which is in the southeast compact. It's not required for authorization. They requested an agreement for next fiscal year, so the proposed agreement would have a termination date of August 31, 2027. Technically recommends.
But sure, Sullivan, this is probably a typo, but in their application, under the, did you self-generate the waste, that they say no? Is that accurate?
They shouldn't check that box one way or the other. They're the generator, so
Right.
It should,
everything they generate is self-generated by their generator, so.
should really, that's supposedly, you see above that, you need to answer that question, you check the waste process.
Right.
Or a water collector, so they don't actually have to answer that question.
But to John's point, they generate all of it, they're generating their
Right.
waste. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, we can move on to item 8H, which is the import application of U.S. Army munitions.
We received the import application from the U.S. Army Munitions Command, care of VWXT Ordnance Tennessee, Inc. That was received June 9, 2026. It's number 1-0534-0. And USAMC is the generator. They are requesting authorization to dispose of Class A unstable depleted uranium oxide and metal or waste, and that's approved for disposal by TCEQ with a letter dated July 30, 2026. They're requesting a volume of 1,500 cubic feet and a radioactivity of 45 curies. Again, that would originate from the state of Tennessee, which is the southeast compact. It's not required for authorization. WCS did send a letter recommending approval of this import application. And they requested a bring for next year, so we have a termination date of August 31, 2027, and the time we recommend it.
I ask this every year, but what's the differentiation between the application of VWXT versus the application of the U.S. Army munitions?
VWXT processes handles depleted uranium. Some of that is for commercial clients, Some of that is for US Army munitions and bands, so. The waste they generate for US Army is US Army's waste. And then everything else is commercial. So, you know, it's fees.
Any other questions for the secretary?
And just people may not recognize this name. I used to be HeroJet or it's been the same. It's been a name change.
Seeing no other questions, we will move on to item 8I, the import application of energy solution.
The technical committee has received an import application from Energy Solutions Services Inc. This is a broker application. It's received June 15, 2026, and it's number 1-0535-00. And they are acting as a broker in this application. They're requesting authorization for Class B and Class C unstable radioactive waste, being water, bead resin, filter media, mechanical filters, metal and soil. Those waste streams were approved for disposal. It'd be a letter from TCQ dated July 30, 2026. They are requesting a volume of 1,500 cubic feet and radioactivity of 7,500 curies. WCS sent a letter recommending approval of simple application. They indicated that this waste will originate from all states except those in the Texas Compact, including Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. So any waste from the Northwest, Southwest, or Rocky Mountain Compact will generally require an export authorization to date. Those export authorizations and generated authorizations have not been submitted to the commission. And I probably should note, let's see if I did them last. In this case, they indicated that the number of shipments, not to exceed 12 shipments, for any waste they send it. They requested agreement for next fiscal year, so proposed agreement with that termination date March 31. Technically recommends.
Any questions for the secretary on item 8I, import application of energy solution? And we'll note that Brian Rogers joined us today, so we appreciate his attendance from. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 8J, which is the import application of remedy.
Technical committee has received an import application from Remedy Health Sciences Inc., which received June 16, 2026. It's number 1-0536-00. Remedy is acting as a generator. And they requested authorization for Class A, Class B, Class C unstable, non-compactable laboratory trash, PPE, paper, plastic, metal, glassware collected in metal and PVC containers, nylon mylar bags, and solidified treated water. Those waste streams were approved for disposal by TCBQ in a letter dated July 30, 2026. They requested a volume of 200 cubic feet and a total radioactivity of 1,500 curies. WCS sent a letter recommending approval of this import application. This waste will originate from the state of Massachusetts, which is an affiliated state. And Remedy has indicated requested agreement for next fiscal year, so the proposed agreement termination date August 31, 2027. And the technical recommends agreement.
Any questions on the import application of remedy? Represented in item 8J. Hearing none, we can move on to item 8K, which is the import application for CDC environment.
Senate committees reviewed the application from CNC Environmental, received June 19, 2026. It's number 1-0537-00. CNC is acting as a broker who's a licensed waste processor in this case. They requested authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C, stable and unstable. Class A, B, and C sealed sources encapsulated concrete and bleed green penetrators and counterweights. Those waste streams were approved for disposal by TCQ, a letter dated July 30, 2026. They requested a volume of 500 cubic feet with total radioactivity of 700 curies. WCS did recommend approval of this import application. They have indicated that the waste will originate in the Rocky Mountain Compact, Northwest Compact, Southwest Compact. And then also unaffiliated waste, which would be generated in all 50 states, and US DOD installations abroad, including but not limited to Puerto Rico, Guam, Europe, Japan, and other DOD stations around the world. So any waste from the Northwest, Southwest, or Rocky Mountain Compacts will generally require export authorization. To date, they have not provided those authorizations or generating authorizations. And I would note that their list of all 50 states includes Texas and Vermont, and obviously this commission does not have the authority to start to waste generating within the state, at least not in terms of its disposal of the site. Also four, one in four difference. And they requested an agreement, or I'm sorry, they've asked for a small quantity generator set aside, and in this case, since some of the waste will be generated by the U.S. Department of Defense, that by definition that excludes that small quantity generator set aside. And they wanted an agreement for next fiscal year, so we have a termination date of August 2027. Committee recommends.
I have. And so a couple of questions. Listed off some international sites, but it does not violate the prohibition for disposal of international waste because it is generated by the DOD, which makes it domestic waste, correct?
Correct. Any waste that is assessed and owned by the United States federal government is considered U.S. waste.
Regardless
Where doesn't matter where it's considered U.S. waste, so it does not violate international prohibition.
My other question is about the small quantity generator issue. In the context of a broker or anyone who consolidates waste, if you're consolidating waste and any of that consolidated waste does not qualify as a small quantity generator, then the entire batch is not, correct?
Right, but actually, we've treated every import application that same way. This is not the first time we've had to exclude small quantity generator set aside because of one of the constituents are struggling to it's not considered small quantity generator.
And that's just because once it's consolidated, you can't identify.
Right.
Any other questions with the secretary? Hearing none, we can move on to item 8L, which is the import application of this for operations unit.
We received an import application from Vista Operations Company LLC, which received June 23, 2026, it's number 1-0538-00. In this case, Vista is a generator requesting authorization to dispose of waste, and they requested authorization for a Class B and Class C stable radiator hardware. That waste stream was approved for disposal. The letter corresponds from TCQ dated July 30, 2026. They requested a volume of 450 cubic feet, and a total radioactivity of 60,000 curies. WCS then sent a letter recommending approval of this import application. They indicated that waste will originate from the state of Ohio, which is a Midwest compact and does not require export authorization. And they requested an agreement for next fiscal year, so termination date of August 31, 2027. I would note that if approved, This application request for me to be treated as continued since it involves radio hardware in excess of 15,000 clearance.
This would be a good time to do a 30-second reminder on the potential security program. Several years ago, we were faced with this oddity where on paper, we were bumping up against the 275,000 security cap set by statute. But what we found was that we were never actually reaching it because in the instance of a lot of these applications, it is estimate that ends up being never used and or discovering that the actual security complex was. So for large security requests, to avoid that problem, what we have done is created a contingent security program which says the application is contingently approved, but when you actually get ready to ship, you have to provide us notice the actual security content that we have to approve at that point. If for some reason we ever bumped up against our 275,000 security cap, it would then be a first come first served basis, and we would have the ability to stop any shipments that actually contain materials that would exceed that 275,000 security cap on our rolling yearly basis. So it's worked rather well. We've never gotten close to 275 in practice, but this way it lets us avoid what ends up being a paper problem. So that is the reason we have this process. And this one is subject to it based on Professor 60. Any other questions of the Hearing none, we will move on to item 9M, the import application of North Star demolition and remediation.
Committee received the import application from North Star Demolition and Remediation. It's received June 23, 2026, Assembly 1-0539-00. North Star is a generator. They're requesting authorization for Class A, Class B, Class C stable and unstable demolition debris, remediation waste, radiated hardware, and source manufacturing materials. And this waste streams were approved for disposal via letter from TCP date July 30, 2026. They requested a volume of 5,000 cubic feet and radioactivity of 600 curies. WCS will better recommend approval of this import application. This waste will originate from the state of California, which is in the southwestern compact, and does require export authorization. To date, the necessary export authorization is not provided, so sent to the discretion for review. And they requested to bring the next fiscal year, so we have a proposed termination date of August 31, 2027. Check records.
I have one question, maybe for you or maybe something Mr. Carlson. So, North Star, have they ever been an applicant before? Usually when they do decommissioning, it's done under a standalone entity. Does this work something that's more of a generalized nature that doesn't necessarily relate to a specific site, or is it?
It is a specific site. Dave, remind me that I can't get the name off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's the former GE Vallecito sites. So it's decommissioning their Vallecito and the small reactors into there.
Okay. Thank you. That's any other questions for Dave? Here, now we move on to item 8N, which is the second import application, this time the generator for energy solutions.
That's correct. We received an import application from Energy Solutions Services Inc. as a generator. Which received June 25th, 2026, Assembly 1-0540-0. They are acting as a generator. They requested authorization for Class B, Class C unstable reformed residue from thermally processed resins, filters, resins, and bioactivated waste. Those waste streams were approved for disposal by TCP letter dated July 30, 2026. They've requested authorization for 650 cubic feet and 7,500 curies. WCS and letter recommended approval of this import application. In this case, that waste will originate from the state of Tennessee, which is in the southeast, gone back and require export authorization. And they requested agreement for next fiscal year, so we have a termination date of August 31, 2027.
Any questions for the technical committee on item 8N, import applications, energy solutions for generator? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 8O, which is the import application of APS Cabo Verde.
Committee has received an import application from Arizona Public Service Valerie Nuclear Generating Station, which received June 30, 2026. It's number 1-0511-00. In Palo Verde is a generator. They requested authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable ion exchange resin cartridge filters with sludge, evaporator bottoms, dry active waste, and radiator hardware. Those waste streams were approved for disposal by TCQ letter dated July 30, 2026. Although in this case it does include radiator hardware, but they included it in their application altogether based on generator. They requested a volume of 2,000 cubic feet and a total radioactivity of 600 curies. This waste will originate from Arizona, which is part of the southwestern compact. It does require export authorization, which to date they've not provided. WCS would recommend approval of this import application, and they requested next fiscal year, so we have a termination date August 31, 2027. That's it.
Any questions for the technical committee on item 8O, the import application for Arizona Public Service Palo Verde? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 8E, which is the import application of NAT 5.
Technical committee has received an import application from NAC Biotechnics Ltd. Received July 7, 2026. It's number 1-0522-0. In this case, Biotechnics is a broker who's a licensed waste electron processor. They requested authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable domestic sealing sources, special form material, decommissioning sources, dry and waste, instruments and particles, green demolition rubble, and other discarded radioactive material wanted. Those waste streams were approved for disposal by TCQ in a letter dated July 30, 2026. They requested a volume of 200 cubic feet, total radioactivity of 200 curies. WCS did recommend approval of this import application. They've indicated that this waste will originate from all U.S. states and territories with the exception of Texas and Washington. So any waste from the Northwest, Southwest, or Rocky Mountain complex will generally require export authorization to date. Those export authorizations, generate authorizations have not been submitted to the DTE. I believe they requested up to 6 shipments. And they requested or indicated displacement from small quantity generators, and based on the volume, curies, and generator types, the emission can occur so long as the waste is not originated from nuclear fuel cycle facilities, nuclear power generation facilities, United States and the they requested an agreement for next fiscal year, so that we have a termination date of August 31, 2027, and the technical committee recommends approval.
Did they check that they are planning to take self-generating waste?
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, they said they have some check solution.
So you dispose of them, but it would be both those sources and sources of return.
It will be obviously sources or tech sources versus sources for disposal.
Any other questions for the tech? Hearing none, we can move on to item 8Q, which is the import application of Amaranth and other.
The technical committee has received an application from M1MO dated July 7, 2026, number 1-0543-00. And Ameren is the generator in this case. They requested authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable residence filters, DAW, when those waste streams were approved by TCDQ and a letter dated July 30, 2026. They requested authorization for 1,000 cubic feet and 300 curies of radioactivity. This waste originated from the state of Missouri, which is a Midwest compact. This is not required export authorization. WCS did send a letter recommending approval of this import application. And Ameren has requested an agreement with Nexus to have a termination date of August 31, 2027.
Any questions on item 8Q, the import application of Amaranth? Third. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 8R, the import application of Southern Nuclear Plant Local.
That committee's received and reviewed report application from Southern Nuclear Plant Control. It's stated July 7, 2026, is some 1-05-0. Hopeless generator. They requested authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable reactor water resin chemical filters and dry active waste. Switch streams were approved by TCEQ in a letter dated July 30, 2026. They requested a volume of 1,800 cubic feet and total radioactivity of 1,000 curies. WCS did recommend approval of this import application. Waste will originate from the state of Georgia, which is in the southeast compact. It's not required export authorization. And they requested an agreement for next fiscal year's termination date of August 31, 2027. Technically recognized.
Any questions from the technical committee on item 8R, the import application of Southern Nuclear Plant Local? Hearing none, we will move on. We have been, members of the commission have asked to pull out the Alon application and treat it separately. So we would skip item 8S, go straight to item 8T, which is the import application of on-care digital assets.
The committee has reviewed the import application from On-Here Digital Assets Inc. Received July 9, 2026, is number 1-0506-00. On-Here is a broker who's a licensed waste electronic processor. And they are requesting authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C state sealed sources, industrial licensing, concrete, and associated debris. This waste streams were approved for disposal by TCEQ in a letter dated July 30, 2026. They've requested a volume of 480 cubic feet and total radioactivity of 700 curies. They two shipments for fiscal year 2027. This application, we did receive approval letter or a recommendation of approval by WCS for application. They've indicated this waste will originate from all compacts, excluding the Northwest Compact and including the following unaffiliated states and districts: Michigan, Nebraska, New York, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maine, and North Carolina, and Washington, D.C. So any waste from the Southwestern or Rocky Mountain compacts would require export authorization. So that did include the list for Texas and Vermont, by the way they wrote it, and obviously it's a mission this no authority this generated state of Texas and Vermont that is disposed of on that site. To date, they have not provided the required export authorizations and generator authorizations. So those have to be submitted, and in two shipments. They did indicate the placement was from small quantity generators based on the volume, various generator types, issue, occurs, so long as it's not that based on the nuclear fuel cycle, nuclear power generation, or the U.S. Department of Defense. And they requested to bring for next fiscal year, so we have a termination date August 31/7.
Any questions? Item 8E, the import application bond for digital accident. Hearing none. Let us now pick up a motion on all of the items in item 8 on our agenda, except item 8S.
I make a motion that we approve the import applications as I presented them for items 8A through R and item 8T.
Second. Motion to second, any further discussion? I'll note that in particular, the one is a contingent query application, which we treated differently, and then on all of the conditions that Vice Chairman Paul laid out, each one of those applications will be part of the motion. Any other comments or discussion on the motion? Any public comment on the motion and to approve all but the LOI application? Hearing none, we want to vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the import application broken in items 8A through R and item 8E, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. We've been going about an hour, so I think we ought to take maybe a 10-minute break before, and we will come back and take up item 8S, which is the import application of Aileron. 10-minute break before. So we will be back at approximately 10. Time is now 9:34. We will go back on the record for our meeting. We are taking up item 8S, which is the import application of Aileron, and we will turn it back over to the Vice Chairman for a presentation. 10:34, I'm sorry.
The 10th committee has received a reviewed import application from Aileron LLC, which was received July 8, 2026. It's number 1-0545-00. This case, Aileron is the broker. He's a licensed waste electric processor. They are requesting authorization for Class A, Class B, and Class C, stable and unstable encapsulated seed sources, dewatered ion exchange resin, and radioactive waste. Those waste streams were approved for disposal at the site. The letter corresponds to TCEQ dated July 30, 2026. They requested a volume of 4,000 cubic feet and a total radioactivity of 750 curies. WCS sent a letter recommending approval of this import application. Aileron has indicated that waste will be generated in all states and U.S. territories except Texas and Vermont. So any waste from the Northwest, Southwest, and Rocky Mountain Compacts will generally require export authorization. To date, they have not provided those export authorizations or generator authorizations. In this case, the applicant has indicated or requested 20 shipments, which does exceed the limit that the commission established. The applicant has indicated that the requested increase is because of the anticipated increase in business, but no specific information was provided. Additionally, the applicant has not actually exceeded 12 shipments in previous years. Finish this. The applicant has indicated the waste to be from small quantity generators. However, I would note that waste streams indicated by the applicant, plus, their typical customers do include nuclear power facilities. Uh, They have regularly processed waste from nuclear power facilities, so that would exclude them from the small quantity generator set aside. They've also, requested, an agreement, for next fiscal year. So the proposed agreement would have a termination date of August 31, 2027. So I'll stop at that point and see if Commissioner Monday or other commissioners have questions or want discussion about it.
So does anyone have any questions or comments about the import application for Avalon in item 8S? So the
I
easiest
have-
way is to open the floor, start with Commissioner Monday, and then we'll go through people who are here. But go ahead, Commissioner Monday.
Yes, I would like to ask if material is brought into that Pennsylvania facility, I'll use the word manipulated in some form. Is the original generator still showing up on the records when they come to the Texas facility so that we can determine the original generator of the material?
Yeah, when they send the shipment packages to Stephen for review, it does have the generator authorizations. That's for each generator listed in the shipping manifest. They have to provide a signed authorization. And then the manifest itself will indicate for each line item who that waste is from,
Yep.
The activity, the volume, and other pieces of information.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the new rating as well.
Yeah, and I asked that because of the prior problem we had had with Aileron putting themselves down as a generator. So I just want to make sure there's an assurance on that. And then also just an assurance that there's no material that's originating from outside of the US or its territories.
Yes, they did indicate that, in their application that there would be no, international waste. I would also note that, they did indicate in their application that they would be self-generating waste and provided some information. But again, that would be information that, Stephen and I can review when they actually send, a shipping, paperwork and look for any waste that is distributed without wrong. And make sure we understand where and how that waste was generated at the facility.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to ask Mr. Carlson, if you could tell us how this 4,000 cubic feet might be containerized? Would it be in drums or, since we're talking about shipping, that would be maybe.
So that could be in all kinds of containers. So it could be drums, bags, liners, inside casks, any type of container that's used for radioactive waste shipping. So I would say a mix of many things.
Dave, do you think it, or I don't know, like, is it possible that some of the waste Avalon might send would come on a train and some might come on a truck?
Yes. Yes, certainly that would be the case. And I would note that historically, the way we measure shipments, I believe, and I think the way you measure too, Stephen, is manifests. And so as I look back at CWF manifests, Aileron had 27 CWF manifests in 2020. They had 17 CWF manifests in 2021. Many other folks, Bionomics, NAC Phylotechnics, have, many manifests, more than 12, certainly.
The way that we calculate the number of shipments at the time of trouble train wire, not just how they manifest it. Typically, it's specifically with Avalon, they send multiple manifests in one shipment. They give them the manifest each separate container. So we did document that, but we can't those things as one shipment, until one train load or truck.
So one shipment could be 100 rail cars together.
Correct. And I believe that is the way the commission interprets that if Alaron was shipped 5 rail cars and they send that package to Stephen for review, that's going to be considered one. It doesn't matter that it has 5 rail cars, that would be considered one shipment.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that our systems track it quite that way. We track by manifest, certainly. And certainly the paperwork load, I think, is based on manifests, not on the amount of trains arriving or trucks arriving or that sort of thing. So
That's true, and one of the things that we found out changing for discussion with WCS is that we're going to track the shipment number with the manifest for your purposes, for your compliance purposes. So we're gonna do that all.
okay, and you've been talking with Chris about that, or?
Yeah. Bruce, actually, going on, asked if we would do that, and we indicated to all the processors that was.
And that's a unique number generated by us.
No, it'll be generated by whoever the, entities we have to agree, so the brokers, waste processors, will give us that shipment number with them, and we will include that in the condition.
But that's not a government issue. 540, 541.
That's correct. It'll be generated by, the shipper.
So Mr. Carlton, based on what you just said, is it accurate to say that 20 shipments you referred to, you thought were 20 manifests?
No. No, we fully expect, 20 shipments and perhaps we'll come back more, requesting
Based
additional.
on the definition that Steve just gave.
Yes. Right. For example, if you think about if it was a cask, you can't put multiple casks on a truck. So if you consolidate waste into a cask and then you ship another and another and another, each one takes one shipment by, your description.
Are you shipping multiple at a time?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
So are you suggesting that the shipments as Stephen defined, meaning even if it's multiple rail cars, multiple trucks, whatever it is, as long as they come at the same time, if that's considered a single shipment, does that change the number of shipments you think from 20 to something less than that?
I'm not sure of the benefit to anyone of having multiple trucks arrive on the same day. Because they're quite independent of each other. And again, my incoming belief to this discussion is that the problem we're addressing is the paperwork load on Stephen and other folks. And so I don't see the paperwork load as being significantly different if a truck arrives and then 3 days later a truck arrives versus 2 trucks arriving on the same day.
So I believe there's more than just that. That's up for, that was part of consideration, limiting the number of shipments. I think the safety aspect of it as well, and the idea of limiting the number of shipments in general, just based on the law of averages. The more shipments you have, the higher probability you have a problem. Therefore, it might be good public policy to limit the number of shipments even. But assuming that what Peter and John are saying is that paperwork load in their mind is not overwhelming if there are multiple manifests in a single shipment. I guess the question I'm trying to get to is, based on Stephen's definition of shipments, you think you will have 20 shipments a year? Is that accurate?
Right, that's the projection that Alaron has done at this point, yes.
I will say, David, that this day, because it might even be dialogue with they have said multiple casts in the same ship. We've indicated that in whether they're quite that.
How would they do that? I'm not,
They give me a unique identification shipment number for those casts in the shipments. Gave me manifest, they used to do configurations and how video applies and put into the tanker actually. But we tracked that and we treated that as one shipment, even though there were multiple casts in that shipment. That's the way we've always treated our one shipments. The same from other workers as well. They give identifying information about what's in each cast, and we treat that as one shipment.
right, so again, the configuration, I wish I had a picture, the configuration of a cask is only one cask can go on a truck. So, and, right, and there's only a limited number of trucks that exist, of casks that exist in the fleet, so you can't just stack up and have 5 of them because you don't have enough casks to do that. So we tend to not run convoys of casks down the road.
I just want to give you a history of the way we treat multiple shipments. And I understand it's a problem, I understand the point. Mass, our standing on the paperwork process and it's still processing, you know, the paperwork, whether it comes on separate trucks. And then whether it comes on the same day is not as important our concern as we treat it as one shipment. Is that fair?
Yes.
So let me ask you a question, maybe to both John and Mr. Carlson. John, you said that in years past, Alabama had never used more than 12 shipments. Did they?
Shipments as defined
Okay.
by Stephen, which is they send a package of information to Stephen for review. That package may have 1 page or it might have 50 or 100 pages of it, but that's considered one shipment. Not in terms of how many vehicles it might or rail cars or whatever, but that's considered one package of information. We consider that one shipment, maybe probably is multiple vehicles, but that would be one.
Would it be easier to define it as like getting approval for a shipment of certain amounts at a specific time? Not in the means of how it's transferred, but let's say 5 trucks, 5 casks travel, maybe not on the same day, but it's approved as a shipment in one
So that's
official
my
reference,
question.
yeah.
Could those packages come on separate days?
Sure. Sure, they probably do. They probably, well, I'd be willing to say they did go on different days on different vehicles in many cases.
I don't know if that's the case at all. There were several instances, but I don't recall correctly, that they send the information on multiple casks. And I don't think I asked the supervisor to say that once, so I was concerned they, sorry, they screwed the shipments or what was in containers.
So let me ask this question then. So how or why do they group those together?
That's strictly a business decision.
So they basically are providing the information because they're ready to ship.
They're ready to ship
So
this material. It might be 1 cask, or it might be 7 casks, or it might be a cask and 25 drums or 2 rail cars or whatever, but it's a business decision as to how they group that material and send a package to Stephen for review.
Now, that's not complete to our, work with processors, they send the gas and shipments.
are they at least in somewhat close succession? I mean, could they send you a package that says, we've got 5 casks, we're gonna send them in January, March, June, and August?
I don't think we've ever had one that's been played like that, but
And for radiated hardware, we have approved, like a schedule over a 3-week period. They're gonna do a cast, once per week, or 3 weeks or something like that, or maybe 2 weeks in between or things like that. But yeah, we've had the same kind of thing. They send it to us for reviews, even reviews it, make sure we have enough carries and it gets approved.
those definitely shipments.
Yes.
And we're gonna get ready to that offer.
So if what we're talking about is campaigns rather than shipments, that's something different, and that would be, certainly beneficial if we could say, every month we'll submit from Alaron, for example, a group of items, and within the course of that month, we will, ship those things.
I think maybe campaigns, Dave, probably in terms of what we're looking at, is probably a word that is more common to this conversation. The idea of a campaign at Alabama, and that results in a package of information that gets sent to Stephen, gets reviewed, gets approved, and then you can ship that campaign material, as your business needs determine.
So it's more of a submission of a certain amount and that would count as a singular shipment. Even though it's physical.
Yeah, so if we back up and define as campaign instead of define as shipment, that does change our thinking, certainly.
Under those circumstances, are you comfortable with 12 campaigns?
If
That way you just do once a month and it's a submission on a monthly basis, and following monthly, you intend to ship the following. And then, include all the manifests and whatever, I mean, is that doable under the way Alabama operates? I guess is the best question.
Yeah, I'd have to go back to them and talk about it. Just sitting here right now, I think so. And I don't think it would limit us. We can only do it on January 1st, February 1st, March 1st. If we had inventory build up and had to move inventory because of limits on the radioactive materials license, we could do it January 1st, January 15th, March 1st, whatever it might be. And if it's, multiple shipments, so one truck one day, then 4 days later another, and 4 days later another. Yeah, I think that would change it significantly. I'd like to go back and talk to folks at Allen.
So how do you want to do it? Do you want us?
I would suggest that we'll go ahead and approve 12 as campaigns. And then Dave can go back and talk to the folks at Allen, but I also would add, as we have said all along, if we approve 12 and it turns out based on actual production at the facility that they, they're halfway through the year and they've already used 8 for some reason, they think they're gonna need 8 more, that they can come back and ask and we can approve more. There's no hard limit, it can only be 12. We'll approve 12 now, and then if actual turns in, the actual waste they receive and their effort, they turn out needing 16, we can approve 4.
Just to clarify here. These are.
Mr. Cole.
Right.
At the implementation shipment, they are subject to approval by the, by the petition to go past that goal.
Which would require a formal amendment, not a minor amendment, so. Okay with that?
So for now, we'd approve 12 campaigns, and a campaign could include multiple cycles of a truck or a train or whatever it might be.
To be used at your own discretion, if you wanted to use 3 in a month, you could. If you want to do it every month, you can. So I mean, I think.
Right, I understand.
Well,
Understand. So
if
that,
you need more, then you would obviously be open to use. I don't want to come back and say, no, I think like John said, our volumes are enormous, which is a good problem to have, and so we need 6 more, 8 more, whatever.
yeah, that'll get us started. And I could certainly come back in the next meeting or the one after if we start to,
You have a chance to go back and talk with those now. Help them understand and all can come back. Sure.
right. Yeah, the definition of campaign helps a lot.
Dave, can I ask a question real quick? Does this cover everything? Let me re-ask it. Does everything come out of that Pennsylvania facility, or is some of it, say, starting at a power plant and it would go straight to the Andrews facility from the power plant?
No, that would be a shipment from the power plant.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm saying for this authorization, is
No,
there
this is
anything?
this is things that would strictly flow through the Aileron facility.
That's what I was trying to check. Thank you.
Any other questions before we move forward to a motion?
Thanks.
So with that, I think we're ready for a motion on item 8S, the import application valve.
I make a motion to approve the import application from Allen, some 1-0545-00. Waste class, class A, class B, class C, waste stream is stable and unstable. The waste stream is encapsulated seed sources. Deep water, ion exchange, resin and dry waste. Volume is 4,000 cubic feet. Total radioactivity is 750 curies. There'll be up to 12 campaigns of material sent. Any waste from the northwest, southwest, or Rocky Mountain compacts, can require export authorization and provide those, as well as the generator authorizations. And this will not be considered small quantity generator waste in the agreement for termination date of August 31, 2026.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion on the import application of Alabama represented in item 8S in our agenda? Hearing none, we want to do a vote. All in favor of the motion as stated by the vice chairman, please indicate so by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you very much for that discussion. We can now move on to item 9, which is our amendment request. We only have one of those. This is a good opportunity to remind everybody about what our amendment process is. It is quite informal. It can be done by email or letter or whatever it is, because generally it's a single line item that people want to change in their agreement. So we encourage people to do it as informally as possible. But we do require that anything other than state of origin, I think that's it. It requires an action of the full commission. We do have a minor amendment process that is in our rules, in which if there's only something as simple as a state of origin change, we can do that without full commission action. But this request that we have before us is clearly not that. So I will turn it over to the vice chairman for a brief description of what the amendment request is.
The tech committee has received and reviewed the amendment request from NextEra Energy Point Beach Nuclear Plant. It's received May 20, 2026, and it's number 1-0517-01. They requested an agreement to increase the volume from 100 cubic feet to 130 cubic feet. And in their amendment request, they indicated, let's see, this originally they did not account for the volume of the liner that is containing material being out of the actual volume of material itself will be disposed. Be disposed based on exterior volume of the container and whatever's inside. So, they did not request any other changes, and I would note that the commission, our WCS sent a letter to the commission recommending approval of this amendment request. Technical committee recommends approval. Any questions?
Any questions for the technical committee on the amendment request to NextEra? Seeing none, we can move on to a motion.
Make a motion to approve the amendment request number 1-0517-01. Increase the line from 100 cubic feet to 130 cubic.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion to approve the amendment request for NextEra, represented item 9A on our agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. We are now to item 10, which is export rate application. Again, since we don't do this all the time, I'll do a brief explanation here. Part of our authority, in addition to regulating the import of low-level radioactive waste into our compact, has to do with the exportation of waste generated within our compact sent out to somewhere else for disposal. We don't get a lot of export requests. Over the years, we had some lively debate about what really qualifies as a legitimate reason for an export request. And we may have some of that today too. But generally speaking, about this time every year, our two power plants in the state of Texas seek an export request that is purely contingent on the idea that if something happened at WCS and they could not accept A-level waste for whatever reason, that they have the right on an emergency basis to export up to, I think, 5,000 cubic feet generally, which is a pretty small quantity of A-level waste. It is always contingent on the idea that WCS not able to take that waste, so it has never been triggered, and I assume it never will be, but it is something that I think is important for those in compact nuclear power generation facilities to have just for treatment lines. So today we have three, two of which are the ones I just described, one from Main Street and one from South Texas. Then we have a third one that is not on that category, NAC 5. So I will turn it over to the vice chairman of the technical committee for brief explanation. And I guess we can treat Major Peaks and South Texas together since they are occasionally.
So the first one we'll discuss is the export request from Comanche Peak Power Company LLC. They are our facility. They requested the ability to export, from September 1, 2026 to August 31, 2027. Requested a volume of 5,000 cubic feet for total radioactivity of 1 curie, a class A material. It will be going to the Energy Solutions, facility up in Bear Creek in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. As the chairman noted, this request is really sort of a contingent export request. That is, they don't intend to export material unless there is some condition at the site that is would prevent them from being able to ship material to the site. And I think that's the details. Technically, we would recommend this export request.
And I would note that such low level waste that it's 5,000 feet in 1 year.
Correct.
So it is incredibly low level.
And what I would propose is that we'll talk about the South Texas project.
So there is a recommendation from the Texas Committee on the export application in item 10A. Any questions for them? And Commissioner Money has spoken to this before, but I'll echo what he has said in the past. Obviously, if we ever did have a situation where whatever reason WCS did not take place, we would obviously have emergency meetings to issue emergency authorization for the export of waste too. I think this is truly stopgap for the time until we can get to the meeting, which hopefully would be a matter of days, but on the off chance it's not, I think 5,000 feet is what our power plants think would be adequate for them on an emergency basis. Any other questions on the subject? Hearing none, I think we can go on to a motion.
Oh, maybe make a motion on this one separately.
No, I'm sorry, then let's go ahead and talk about item 8, 10C, which is the similar import application of South Texas.
Right. The technical committee has received and reviewed an export request from STP Nuclear Operating Company. And this request would be from September 1, 2026 to August 31, 2027. They've also requested a volume of 5,000 cubic feet and a total radioactivity of 0.5 curies, which is class A waste. Similarly, the material will be exported to the Energy Solutions Bear Creek facility. And I would also note that similarly, STP is requesting this only as contingent, only if there were some unusual circumstance that would prevent WCS from being able to accept their list. The technical committee again recommends approval of this export.
Any questions for the South Texas application? Then
I make a motion to approve the export request for PHP Nuclear Operating Company and the South Texas project export.
there's a motion, is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or public comment on the export of the application request of HUP and South Texas project represented in items 10A and C in our agenda? Hearing none, we want to vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the export applications of HUP in South Texas, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. So as I mentioned, the one that does not fall into the contingent category of one of our power plants is the export request of Nat Philo, which is item 2B. So I'll turn it back over to John for one more explanation.
The technical committee has received and reviewed an export request from NAC Biotechnics Ltd. And they are requesting authorization to export material that is actually going to be generated by RLS USA Inc. In this case, they requested authorization for 25 cubic feet with 0.25 curies. It's a class A material. Would be exported to Energy Solutions facility in Bear Creek in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. They've indicated in this case that the material is biological material, mostly sharps that are in small containers. And they're requesting this, to allow material to be incinerated rather than disposed of. And I believe we actually have indication from staff, WCS, that they support this, they have an intention of handling their material. Staff committee recommends approval. Have to answer questions.
Any questions on the export application of that file of represented items in D on our agenda? Hearing none, we can move on to a motion.
I make a motion to approve the export request for NAC Biotech.
Second.
The motion and a second, any further discussion? Any public comment on item 10B? Hearing none, we'll move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the export application of NAC Philo represented in item 10B on our agenda, please indicate so by saying aye.
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 All opposed, no. Motion passes. Okay, with that, we are through item 10 on our agenda. We can move on to item 11, which is my report. I'll try to keep it brief. But there may be a reason that we need to go into executive session on item 11B, and if so, we will maybe have to already set up a minute, but it's fine. The first issue is legislative updates. Our legislature starts again in January. So we are beginning the process of going through the appropriations application, the ALR, and our request. Is probably most of you have read. There's been the direction to most agencies, which we are not, but they have asked most Texas agencies to reduce their budget by 3%. Obviously, if asked, we will do that as well. Our actual request is lower than it's been in years past. And we will get to that in a moment, but we are now going through the ALR, or the appropriations process, and having the meetings and making the presentations. We may call some of you to assist with that if needed. Also, as we always do, we will monitor closely to see if there's any other legislation filed that could affect us or our industry. We fully expect that this year there will be some legislative activity on our topics, so we will make sure we stay on top of that and brief everyone to come up. We usually just talk about state legislation when under this line item, but there are some things that are happening. Stephen talked about in a moment about the NRC Part 61, rewrite by the NRC, but there was also some press in, particularly in a publication called Politico, about some leaks, draft legislation federal level that could potentially impact us. We're monitoring that very closely because there is a chance that it has impact on us. And also there's a chance that it also has a significant impact on our member states. So we want to make sure that we stay on top of it and coordinate with the governor's office and all our elected officials and agency partners that need to be part of the discussion to make sure that there are no unintended consequences, that it doesn't do anything that we think would potentially derail our industry or our operations. But it's probably too early in that process to really have a firm opinion on that yet, but we continue to monitor it very closely. So with that, that's item A. Item B is the review and approval of our annual budget. And that's included in your packet. Our budget looks very similar to the way it has in the past. We have moved some dollars around. And I want to give everyone an opportunity to review it, especially in light of what I'm about to say. For years, we have put into our budget dollars for a compact attorney. We have never actually gone through the process of hiring one. We think this year we definitely would. There are a lot of compact specific issues that we think we might need a specialist to work in that regard. Also, we have put money in, although it's less than it has been in the past, for a consultant. That would be a technical consultant likely to help with some of the technical burden that we face with some of the new information that we're going to be getting in the coming years. So we think that there will be someone that we will hire on as an independent contractor on a somewhat limited basis for an hourly position on that. The one thing that I think we might need to go into executive session on, if we would like to, is you'll note there are salary increases for both our executive director and, our assistant executive director in this budget from years past. Nothing to cycle there. Yes, that number should go up, not down. We'll fix that, but speaking in percentages, both of them would get a 5% raise. And that was a personnel matter, and anyone would like to, and because it's a personnel matter, we could discuss that in executive session, so if anyone would like to discuss that. Want to give everyone the opportunity.
So. What is the actual number? You said one of these is incorrect.
So in 26, it has the admin assistant ED line, it's 43.6, and then in 27, it's 40. And that's incorrect because it should have gone up by 5%. I don't know if 43.6 is the right number in the first place. Oh, okay, so that's what it was. Yes, so what it was when we redefined the position, the actual expenditure would have been, can't remember what it would have been.
43.6. But what we're proposing for next fiscal year would be 40,000.
Which is a pay increase for Becca for what she's making now. So her hourly rate that we pay her will go 5%.
Gotcha. But 40,000 is correct number.
Yes, yes, I was wrong. And then again, you see that we have actually reduced our consultant number and, we have increased, we had 0 in 2026 for our compact attorney, and in 27, we are proposing $40,000. Obviously, the appropriation for 27 has already been approved, so this is our annual budget for a year that our bulk number has already been approved. The appropriations process we're going through now will be for fiscal year 28. So that is the reason, that you see those two numbers at the bottom of the sheet to be remarkably similar. There's a whole host of other line items in there, and so I want to make sure if anybody has a question or a comment about any of it, that they have an opportunity to say that, because this will be our budget. Good news is we have some flexibility in our budget, but this is generally the outline we want to follow.
I'll just ask a quick question about the information technical services. That one went down significantly. I'm just curious why. It went from 25,000 down to $1,500.
I think that was, we had budgeted money at one point, thinking we were gonna have to do a major change to either our website or something else we were doing technically. And so we don't have to do that anymore. And I'm not sure that we ever did that in the first place, but I think that was our thought when we did the 26 budget. Now we said that. I'll also note that there's one other significant change, and that was in the consultant line item. Last year was $51,000, but that included public education. I don't know why we grouped those together, but for 27, we broke them out to where we did reduce the consultant expenditure a little bit, but we also broke out a separate line for public education of $5,000, which is really our generator workshops and other potential public education matters, which the legislature has made clear it's important that we should.
We're scheduled to have that in
Tennessee,
right?
yeah. In connection with the forum, correct? So that's a relatively strong number as well. The rest of the numbers are just based on historical experience, obviously things like our rent and our travel or something that we can pick pretty accurately based on what we've spent in the past. The other line items generally stay the same. We jumped into the moderation, we didn't have to stop any line item anymore to have to do any of that. And the other thing that I noted that maybe about someone is our previous landlord, when we were on contract, required insurance. And it was just a requirement release, if the owners who did it. And obviously we've never used it. Our new landlord is not, so our insurance line item is not paid. The insurance that we carry, I mean, not necessary, it should be part of the lease. So that, in case anyone thinks that Josh would have insurance, that's a problem, I don't think it's, but if anyone wants to discuss that. So are there any questions about the budget? Hmm? Okay, well then, we won't be going to executive session, and we can, although I don't know that it's actually. It is required for us to approve it, therefore, and because it is a statutory, item, I think we have to have a motion for a second, I think this is to vote on the budget. So, all in favor of the budget is for, 2027 as represented in the packet, please indicate so by saying aye.
Hi.
All opposed, no. Budget is approved. Thank you very much for that. I know that's probably not a fun part of your job, but always necessary. With that, we've been through the 11th item, and we can now move on to the 12th item, which is Stephen's.
First off, thank you for the supposed to start. You have on your agenda a discussion about the NRC Part 61 release. And I think most of you I've talked to a little bit about this. The Legal Regulatory Commission has proposed to change Part 61 that have a significant effect on low-level radioactive waste coming into the state of Texas and in the area, yes, the minimum around the compact site. One of or a couple of critical items that are, the NRC's proposed rules, and they're in the comment period now, would allow greater than C class waste to be disposed of for near surface disposal, which is will concern a lot of people in Andrews County, though the only way that affects this commission specifically is if that waste were at some point to come to the compact waste facility. And if someone assumed that that waste, that greater than C class waste, if approved for near surface disposal, will probably go to the federal cell instead of to compact waste facility itself. That being said, with those proposed changes to rulemaking in NRC, they do affect us tangentially. And the low level form, which Mr. Strong's group has submitting comments, got together and had a discussion on submitting comments on behalf of all the compacts and the local who participated in that discussion. And happy to share with you comments that the forum has chosen to submit. They are specific to those elements that relate to compacts with Part 61. I'm happy to share them with you, and if you have questions about that, about that discussion. I think for your purposes, if those are approved, there could be greater than C class waste coming into Texas. And if you want to have a discussion about that, or if you want to have that discussion with Mr. Carlson as well as the Texas site, for that greater than that approval. The other thing I should have mentioned earlier is there's a significant change that allows the NRC to take over the license approval process for that near surface disposal of greater than C class waste, and that takes that authority away from the states, and that's been the subject of significant concern of the states for the one license. Well, they wouldn't have that license in the first place, but it may go with the NRC that license. That could prove complicated. The federal cell and the greater than C class waste in the state. Currently, greater than C class waste has been banned by the state of Texas to enter the state that wasn't generated inside the state of Texas. So this could create a significant departure and some friction between the state of Texas and the federal government. One that greater than C class waste would be in Texas. I thought it might be useful for you to hear about those Part 61 changes, and also an opportunity to go from here, talk about how those changes might affect the commission. And as WCS makes a comment as well on those changes, we could time for us to talk.
Also, I'll add, state of Texas, through the governor's office and TCQ, will also be making comments. And so to the extent you think, why didn't we as a commission make comments? I think our thought was between the forum and the state of Texas, everything's probably covered and we don't need to necessarily generate our own independent comments. But again, that's the topic of discussion we can have right now, if we need to. We have not seen state of Texas's comments, but we hopefully will see those. When's the deadline? Monday. So Monday, we should see everybody's comments. This is a complicated and pretty dense issue. This is, something that's been rolling around out there for a long, long time. It does definitely make some changes in the industry and potentially makes changes to what we do and what we have the authority over. Because if you look at the way our statute is worded, we are bestowed with the authority to regulate the importation of all low-level waste into our compound. GTCC is considered low-level waste. And some of this rulemaking altered that significantly. The reason it's never been an issue really is because GTCC has never been imported into our state for disclosure. So we've never had the issue with it come before us. But this will potentially create a new stream of waste that will come into the state of Texas for importation and disposal. And I believe, again, this is it's important careful in what we say. I believe the way that rewrite of Part 61 is currently worded, it would not hold our authority at all. It would simply be done by the end.
I would have to, as drafted, change your any points to be now being. That's not the place to dispose of, well, certain, certain some folks that have disposed. Outside of all companies, so we don't think funds.
And who would regulate?
This commission currently is. But I would say. All right, folks.
Even if the NRC does step in, we have to wait until or ETCC, do they have to make findings, some sort of excesses or the compacts processes and then out of some way they just do that?
It's one full license, but that's not correct, Mr. Carlson. They have disagreement with that. But I believe the licensure authority gives them permission for citizens for the licensure of insurance.
And this eventually gets back to the idea of agreement state that certain authority is eaten down from federal government to states under the agreement state model. And so I think, I'm not an expert on that by any means, but I don't know if the state of Texas would claim that this violates that agreement state model, or if they think, or if they agree with the NRC that they have the authority to pull this issue out and make it a federal issue exclusively again.
And other issues support the state of Texas.
Right.
And what the other things they come as well, so the assumption that the only location for GTC disposal currently be at the site of the citizens. But we need to try to that big.
I'd like to hear what Dave Carlson has said the diagram.
Yeah, there's a lot of misrepresentation, mischaracterization that's gone on. In Texas, we have a law that prevents disposal of GTCC. Secondly, GTCC is a federal responsibility despite the fact that it's low-level radioactive waste. Those things don't change. 10 CFR 61, whatever it looks like when it passes, and I'm glad folks are making comments on it, whatever it looks like when it passes, it does not cram down something on the state of Texas. It does not require the state of Texas to do something. The state of Texas We are our own authority. Our governor and our legislature determine what happens in the state of Texas. So this is not some kind of a cram down. A large part of the intent in the federal legislation, which is not going to pass in the form that you saw it, Stephen, in Politico, that and part of what's in Part 61 is really to facilitate these innovation campuses that, for example, Vern can talk about one in Utah. The state of Utah has offered to take GTCC waste and spent nuclear fuel and dispose and store it in their state. The state of Tennessee has offered to do the same thing. The state of Oklahoma has offered to do the same thing. Louisiana, so this, to imply that this is something about the state of Texas, it's not. It's not. This is longstanding, updates that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has wanted to make to 10 CFR 61 in that they're making. They've actually made them in a way to facilitate these nuclear innovation campuses that are going to happen in other states outside of Texas. And so this is in no way some, bullet targeted at the state of Texas or some cram down in the state of Texas. That's simply not the case.
So I want to make sure I understand. Do you think that all of the work that's been done on it, Part 61 was in connection with or in coordination with this idea of the nuclear innovation campuses? It wasn't independent of that?
So it's been going on for about 20 years that there's been updates coming along. However, as we got to the finish line, the nuclear innovation campuses and the 10 CFR 61 changes have kind of come into the same time frame and aligned with each other, yes. That doesn't change the fact that we've been working on 10 CFR 61. The NRC's been working on 10 CFR 61 for 20 years to try to bring it into the modern era from a regulation that was developed 40, 50 years ago.
And legislation you talked about this too, that's what we're talking about, is there's a leaked document that thanks to the draft legislation that has a reclassification system for low-level waste and basic intermediate class, and that's raised in such public. It's in conjunction with discussion about these campuses. But if an intermediate class level of waste was actually changed in statute, that may have implications as to what intermediate class is actually managed agencies. So you could be included in that. I don't know. We didn't. That's very speculative. Again, we're talking about a leaked document that is no way even viable discussion at the federal level. But it's a lot of people read about it. It was Politico wrote about this and its discussion in the industry.
Right. If you talk to staff of the relevant committees, basically, that law is in no way likely to be passed as written. So, I would wait for something that's actually published out.
So let me ask it this way. Under the proposed language for Part 61, is there a pathway by which some cell, the WCS facility in Andrews could start accepting the disposal of GV60?
If you look at 30 TAC 336, it specifically prevents it. It excludes it. Now, one thing I'd like to back up and say is that GTCC in so many ways is the same thing as Class C waste. It's not anything like spent nuclear fuel. What it is it's somewhat higher concentrations. A large portion of it is actually GTCC based on nickel 63, which is irradiated nickel, which is embedded in metal, which is a beta emitter, which has a 100-year half-life. So it's a very short half-life compared to the life of my facility. So since it's beta, it provides no dose rate to the workers. And because it's a 100-year half-life, it's gone in 1,000 years, basically. And my facility is required to comply for 10,000 years, but we run our PA out to 1,000,000 years. So this great hazard that people are thinking of when they think of GTCC is simply not there. It's the same material we actually use for downhole logging, the oil fields and those kind of things. So you think transuranic, Stephen, you said, well, americium 241, we use americium 241, americium beryllium sources in the oil field, and they're running in the back of pickup trucks. That doesn't become suddenly more scary if it's sitting in a centralized location. It's still the same material, that you'd trust two guys to take around in their pickup truck and do downhole logging.
But that's including the park system changes and back to the point, and I think it's probably pretty. The NRC does have the ability to grant and allow licensure of the insurance disposal for GTCC, and that does take that away from the states. Reason it seems folks sometimes is because there's a speculation that your site is where that is the ideal first location where GTC will dispose.
We have a law in Texas that prevents it. I don't know how I can be more clear about that.
I'm sure, and I that over.
But
The state of Texas is banned GTC, the entering state.
Right.
Mr. Carlson, do you think the state of Texas has the right to prohibit the feds from authorizing putting greater than C into the federal cell?
I think the state's already done that.
Now, I'm asking, do you think they have that legal authority? If the feds say they're going to do it and we say we object, can the feds override it through preemption?
Well, I think Commissioner Bradford is probably more expert on this than I am. However, the way that tends to work is that if the states are not restrictive enough in their regulations, the NRC can force them to become more restrictive in their regulations. On the flip side, my understanding at least is that the state or the NRC cannot tell the states, well, we need you to be looser in your regulations. We need you to do less, or at least they have never, ever historically done that and forced states to back up.
Right now, who approves what goes into the federal cell right now? It's not us. I've never seen a request for approval to put anything in the federal cell.
It's the TCEQ.
They authorize what goes into the federal cell on each specific item going into it, or you're saying just the license generally?
They have the license generally. They have the right to every shipment document, everything else, and they review those, certainly.
But they don't approve, they don't have the authority to say we object, we're not putting this particular load in the federal cell, do they?
They don't have a meeting like this. Certainly the commissioners at the TCEQ don't go through a review of each generator type process.
But their process is waste acceptance criteria and saying it complies with the current license as written. It is not a regulation of interstate commerce that we have here.
Correct.
Right, that is true. But, again, they write the license, they write the waste acceptance criteria. And we, with their oversight, comply with the waste acceptance criteria on a shipment by shipment basis.
But this,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Judge.
Mr. Carlson, the Federal Organic Act that created this compact commission gives us the authority to regulate what is allowed to cross into the state. Is that correct? For disposal or management, I should limit it to that. Is that correct?
I don't think that's I think that's more nuanced than maybe you put it.
Please explain. I read the Organic Act to say we have the authority to regulate and require our approval before anything is brought into the state of Texas for either management or disposal. That's in the actual statute.
Sure, and I would need to consult with my attorney to tell you exactly how we differ from your interpretation of that statute.
Okay, fair enough.
So I'd be glad to do that.
Thank you. That's all, Brandon. Go ahead.
So based on something you said earlier, talking about certain types of GTCC and their half-lives, could something be GTCC today and whatever, 15, 25, whatever years from now, no longer qualify as GTCC based on decay?
Absolutely.
Is that something that happens regularly?
No.
Is there a current pathway by which, through the passage of time and allowing them to decay, is there a current stream of waste that was once GTCC that is now being disposed of at your facility? There's have to be your facility, I was gonna say somewhere else. in one of the other facilities that operated back in the day. Is it a regular occurrence that prior or former GTCC is now disposed of as Class C waste based on decay?
I'm not familiar with it. In general, the half-lives are, longer than,
And then you can,
than the normal short-lived things we see. So 5 years is kind of a measuring point for a lot of activation products. So, and those don't drive something to be GTCC. So
like you said, you all know for 30 years, so there hasn't been enough time passed.
right, but nobody's gonna store something for a couple hundred years or unless it gets stuck and orphaned.
Level base. I don't see a path right now.
I do. There's 5 states that have said they're the path.
Let me just see if my understanding is right about where GPCC is right now. But the part of it, I believe, is in the gas, where the spent fuel, gas to burn.
Right.
Sort of the spent fuel at the reactors, so it's not going anywhere unless the spent fuel goes over there. It makes sense, right? You have 3 or 4 of this gas. And then it should all for you still have. Only if the gas is there. Is there a GTC stream other than what's you still don't say?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's really.
Right, but if you look under those cash that are stored under CFR 72, potentially as this window is opened, and I think deep boreholes are being talked about, not necessarily deeper than 30-meter boreholes are being talked about. In fact, we're testing in Texas right now, borehole technology. We are not, another company is, but testing borehole technology, and that's a proposed solution in the NRC regulations for specialized disposal of GTCC. So not to say that would happen in Texas, but that's certainly being proposed in other states right now for, disposal of GTCC that would certainly include the material that's sitting in reactors. The cost to the government of disposing in, a shallow borehole is certainly much less than waiting for a deep geologic repository.
So there might be a scenario because again, tell me if I'm wrong, but my senses say my antenna has some bullet essentially, which may be for.
I think it's less, might be 2 or 3, but I don't recall.
Generally speaking, thinking wouldn't prevent it from up 2 to 3 tests, leaving 57. Still usually. Exactly the same.
Well, those casks financially are government responsibility right now. So the government would make that decision. And if the government had access to a nuclear innovation campus that had, disposal for that kind of thing, I would expect the government would at least take a look at doing it.
So, does anyone have an estimate of how much GTCC exists in our country right now?
Absolutely. If you take a look at the of the EIS for GTCC that DOE published 5 years ago or so, those numbers are there.
What, based on your memory, what is the general number, volume wise, how much GTCC is out there?
A lot.
Like in the millions of cubic feet or hundreds of thousands of cubic feet or?
Yeah, certainly at least tens of thousands.
Okay. And from an activity standpoint, obviously, it's only what the minimum number is for what qualifies as GTCC. The activity could be at least estimated. I mean, I don't know if that is actively measured, but you could say that qualifies as GTCC, it's at a minimum, this level of has radioactivity or this minimum level, therefore we could at least get a minimum number of what the curies are for that mass GTCC.
Yeah, characterization doesn't exactly work that way. So characterization is based on 10 CFR 61.55 tables 1 and 2, and you go into those tables with individual radionuclides and determine the ratio of the individual radionuclides to the limit for that radionuclide, and then you would add the multiple radionuclides together in something called sum of the fractions to come up with, is this fraction greater than or less than one? So it's not, you can't say, well, it's 10 curies per cubic meter or something. It doesn't work that way. It's much more detailed than that in terms of coming to those numbers.
The other thing that you mentioned a couple of times with the nuclear innovation teams that are discussing political article and there have been a bit, I guess, application, not bid process that have identified 5 states and they're gonna choose 3 of them, correct?
That's what I've heard.
What is the timeline to get one of those nuclear innovation, I notice in your area, but do you have any information or opinion on how long it take to get one of those nuclear innovation campuses up and running, constructed, up, running, licensed, all things being encouraged, but actually have it be an active operation?
It depends on what aspect of the activity. So they're talking about fuel cycle activities from, front end to back end. They're talking about disposal activities. They're talking about nuclear reactors and advanced reactors and all those kinds of things. So there's a lot of activities. They would all require licensing. There's a big backlog, not to say backlog. There's a lot going on at the NRC today in terms of review of things. So you'd have to take that into account. It also depends on how much money the federal government spends. They've talked about spending, $10 billion on a campus. So $10 billion can perhaps move things, rather quickly.
Years, if you measure not in months, but years, right?
Certainly.
Right.
So they would actually have.
Based on infrastructure or something.
But it still takes the same NRC review. So NRC does not, NRC has worked hard to accelerate their review timelines, but there's a fixed length of time they need to go through to get things done.
And Peter mentioned this, I don't know if it's today or last night. Those campuses would be interim storage for high level, right? Not permanent deposit.
You can actually go out and read those, and it varies by state. So several of the states have committed. I think Louisiana said they're going to have a deep geologic repository underneath the Gulf, for example. So depending on which one it is, it may be interim storage or deep geologic repository. Do you remember what Utah said, Vern, whether it was interim storage or deep geologic? Interim storage in Utah. So it's going to vary by which state it is.
You can add that the offsite recovery program, have any of those sources come to WCS?
In general, I don't think the OSRP sources have come to us. Certainly it would have to fit our WAC if they did. So they would.
Test sites or GTCC.
Oh, certainly DOE sites can take, some things that would be GTCC. Obviously, they take defense transuranics into the WIP facility, and so on.
Do you have any more questions?
No, sir.
I have one last one. How much GTCC is currently being stored overseas? And I know the legacy waste from.
It's Gulf nuclear waste that we're storing for the EPA. And there was a facility down near the Gulf Coast that produced both medical and oil and gas logging sources. That facility went out of business, and the EPA had no what they felt to be secure place to store that. And so many years ago, they worked with the state of Texas and decided to store it at our facility. And it'll be stored there until somebody opens up a disposal facility for GTCC. I think it's been a couple of decades now. Yes. Yes.
Any other questions from Mr. Carlson? Oh, okay, thank you.
One thing I wanted to add to the next behind. We're gonna have a public education workshop on the Golden Warming meeting in Tennessee in Knoxville on October 7th and 8th. The commission is going to conduct a public education workshop, which Vice Chair Solomon and Commissioner Morse and myself will present. We'll have others as well, after the local forum from, so that will be October 8th from 2 to 6 p.m. We're hoping to have WCS to be a presenter as well and give opportunity for the stakeholders to interact with us and hear from us on processes and updates and things that we're doing to help those wishing to bring waste into the United States of Texas. And that will be, again, October 8th. From 2 to 6 p.m. Dishes will be there, TCP will be there as well, or at least the virtually present. We hope to have some possible folks who proceed to help with participation. If you have questions about that public education workshop, I'll be happy to answer them, but Morris and Buster yourself will be part of that process. Susan, they can roll into questions.
Thank you, Stephen, and that dovetails nicely into item number 13, which is our future commission meetings. Because after that meeting in Tennessee in early October, we have our next meeting October 22nd, and it is in Andrews. It's obviously a very important meeting, just because it gives us an opportunity to hear from people who live in close proximity to the site and hear any concerns from local government or have any kind of joint meetings that we may need to have. So that will be after the forum meeting. The forum meeting's in early October, then this will be later October. Dr. and Stephen will be getting to you about the hotel arrangement and any other specifics we need to do about travel. But that will be in the meeting, and I hope everybody, and after that, you'll be back to Austin in December, which sometimes we have that meeting, sometimes we cancel it, depending on the volume of application we get. If nothing pressing, often we cancel that meeting, but we will keep on the books until we know for sure. And then starting the new year, we will once again be back in Austin in February, which is when our legislature will be meeting. So we will be in Austin, but we might be somewhere other than the Capitol, but that will be important because by then we'll have a much better handle on what type of legislation we will be watching or potentially dealing with. Hopefully our appropriation process will be going with by then. Any questions about future meetings? Once again, we want to thank everyone in Vermont for hosting us and thank the Vermont commissioners and Deborah for being gracious hosts and so accommodating and all the things we've got to do. And we appreciate the ability to come up here once a year. And I know it's that everyone looks forward to, so I appreciate everyone who came. With that, we're at item 14, which is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Second. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
May I suggest that it, this is towards a suggestion, we're adjourned.
Yes.
Yeah. That, there's one particularly interesting, and if you drive east on Route 4, the Cochise, the Simon Pierce operation there is really a very nice place to visit. They blow glass, got the glass blowing thing, they've got a hydroelectric site that kind of supports all that. They've got a retail second store. It's all, and they've got a restaurant. It's all really classy. And then, of course, Woodstock in general is a nice town. And wander around and
I'm off schedule for anything that class.
The library was cool. I went to the library yesterday. It was cool.
Thank you all very much.
Yes, so she can things back.